Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Tyrone back with Tech Life. Great article here from Inside Towers. I'll leave a link to it in the description. For those of you who haven't seen it, you guys can check out the article. So now we have even more questions than answers. So not too long ago, T-Mobile hosted a Investors Day, and when I made videos summarizing the event, and after the fact, I was putting together smaller videos, giving you guys the information. During those videos, I stated that we did not get enough info and questions answered on the network side. And now that T-Mobile is selling 3.45, the DoD spectrum, we have even more questions, or at least I do. Right? I have even more questions now that need to be answered, and I'm sure you guys have similar or the same questions. T-Mobile bought this spectrum with the understanding that it would be deployed in a dual band radio, which would include the C-band spectrum they also purchased, and they would use that spectrum towards what they called at the time congestion protection, right? Sites that are slowing down significantly in the urban core where it's dense enough, as they say. That's where they bought it, right? They bought it across, I think, 275 million pops, the DoD. No, 175 million pops. That's the footprint that they got DoD, and then I think C-band is like 225 million pops. But that was the original plan, to deploy it in a dual band radio, one touch, use it as congestion protection. So now it's being sold. It's being sold to Columbia Capital. They traded or swapped 7% of the spectrum for more 2.5. That's a win. That's a clear win. But now the rest of the other 93%, they're selling it. They're selling those licenses across, I think, like 78 counties or something like that. So what are they going to do with the 2.7 billion? Right? Like I said, a lot of questions. What are they now going to do for congestion, right? Yes, the C-band is still congestion protection, but you just lost 20 megahertz. And I know 20 megahertz is not a lot, right? But now you have different technologies, you have more efficient equipment that can squeeze more out of 20 megahertz versus what you previously had. So 20 megahertz could potentially perform like 30 megahertz or 40 megahertz with all of the additional technology that's out there now, right? Massive MIMO on FDD and TDD. That's now a possibility, right? The additional Ericsson radios and Nokia radios that are coming out that are newer, more efficient, right? You got 128 QAM and all that stuff. So that 20 megahertz could be a much bigger boost than some may realize. But now it's being sold. So it's going to take a good amount of capital investment or capital allocation to make up for 20 megahertz, meaning you would have to deploy a certain amount of small cells. You would have to you would have to deploy new tower sites to make up for that 20 megahertz that you could have just deployed on a cell site. You could have just upgraded, and boom, there's 20 more megahertz on air for additional capacity. So, right at first, I thought about it from a different perspective. I thought about it, okay, this DoD spectrum, 20 megahertz, is it really worth climbing sites again? Right, spending that initial capital, deploying it, getting the tower crews up on the towers again. But then I thought about it. I was like, well, if it's going to be part of a one touch, and they clearly have no plans to deploy it at this time, so there will be readily available dual band radios at the time of deployment. It would just be a one touch. It would be a part of the C-band deployment anyway with the dual band, right? So they would just deploy that capital and deploy both spectrum bands at the same time. So that's how I thought about it. And I was like, it makes sense, right? Because now they're gonna spend that capital anyway because they're still going to deploy C-band, the 3.7. They're still going to go on sites to deploy that. So they could have deployed a DoD at the same time. So now I'm thinking, okay, what are they going to do? They're going to have to deploy capital to deploy the C-band. And then if that in the future at some point is not enough anymore, now that extra 20 megahertz, you're going to have to deploy additional cell sites or small cells or both in some cases to make up for that 20 megahertz. So it's going to get interesting, right? And there's plenty more questions that I would have. I didn't write them down, but there's a lot more, right? But besides just selling the spectrum and how are you going to make up for 20 megahertz, right? There's plenty more, right? Are you going to invest that 2.7 billion into more 2.5 sites? Like, I mean, you name it. There's a list out there. So let me know some of your thoughts and some of your questions in the comments. I want to hear from you guys, right? Were you shocked by this announcement? Or were you like, okay, this is just, why even buy it in the first place? Right? Like, they could have just probably bought 2.5 from Sonic Wave in those markets that they got it, right? The additional spectrum they got from the swap. They could have possibly just bought that spectrum. It's very possible. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, more questions right now than answers. Even after this 4-hour Investors Day, still more questions than answers. So we're just going to have to keep looking, going to have to keep researching and seeing what we can find out. But for now, T-Mobile is selling DoD spectrum. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe if you're new. Follow my social media outlets. This is Tyrone with Tech Life. See y'all in the next one. Peace.